Well, thank you very much. Greetings from New York City. First off, I wanted to leave a word for the interpreters. Leona had contacted me more than once asking me to share slides in my presentation. As it turns out, I don't have one. I decided not to share slides. I was told that I only have 30 minutes, and usually this is a topic that I cover in 3 hours of our webinar or our workshop. So I'll try to condense a lot of information here. So rather than bother you with slides and so on, what I thought I would do is go to the specific websites where you can get more information and get your feet wet and really grow and hit the ground running, as we say, if you really want to find an opportunity with the United Nations. So for the interpreters, please rest assured that there are no gotchas, no difficult terminology, and thank you very much for helping me make sense in Ukrainian. Right. So all I have is a few websites that I'm going to draw your attention to. Now, before I proceed, is there any way we can interact and hear back from the audience? Because I have a few questions. Right.
Sorry, yes, we have the mic and I can pass it to the audience. So it is
Okay,
fully
so
possible.
very quickly, again, I can see you, but again, the question is, of course, you are in Europe, and maybe the European Parliament and the European Commission has more of an appeal to you than the UN does. But mostly, and for the most part, linguists, when they start their careers, they invariably think of the UN. And some people, that's even the reason why they learn languages, because they want to become a UN interpreter, and so on and so forth. And there are many good things about that, but there are many misconceptions that go with it. So, one, for example, is to think that to work for the UN, you have to have all six languages of the United Nations, or at least as many of those languages as possible, which, as we will see, is not accurate. Now, is there anybody in the audience? I would like to get a good feel of how many out there are interpreters and how many out there are translators, if I could ask.
Okay, let's do a show of hands. Those who are interpreters, could you please raise your hands? Well, that's almost the entire audience there.
Okay, so I'm talking mostly. Okay, now I can see you guys. Excellent. So I'm talking mostly to interpreters, and that's good. So, and if you raise your hands now, I can see you. So raise your hand if you have at any point in your career thought about becoming a UN interpreter, even if it's a wild dream.
I'll be honest as well.
Okay, very good. I see a few hands going up and so on. And are you all Ukrainian mother tongue, or do we have colleagues with different native languages, like English as a mother tongue or Spanish and so on? Right?
I think we have a Romanian colleague over there. What is your mother tongue?
Okay, okay. But for the most part, you are Ukrainian interpreters, right? Is that
That's
right?
true. Yes.
Okay. So you are pretty much in a situation similar to the one I was in, which is, being a speaker of Portuguese, which is not a UN language. And so many people told me, because I, like you, had the dream of someday working for the UN. And many people told me that, again, it's not going to happen in a million years because Portuguese is not a language of the United Nations. And they are right. And yet I landed a job with the UN where I was the chief interpreter of an international organization, ITU, in Geneva for 7 years. So there are ways and there are different jobs with the United Nations as well. So let me quickly, again, I'm assuming a lot about you, but let me quickly take you to a place where um, I'm going to perhaps guess one of the reasons or some of the reasons why you would like to work for the UN. Of course, everybody talks about wanting to work for the UN because of the exhilarating feeling of just being where the action happens and because it is the best possible use for your language skills and so on. But there are other perks, and I wanted to draw your attention to that. So let me find a way to share my screen. Where do I go to share my screen, guys? On Zoom. Wait. Oh, there you go. Okay, so now let me share my entire desktop again. And you see the United Careers website now, right?
Yes,
You
we
do?
do. Yes.
Okay. So before I go there, I want to cover with you the many benefits that one could expect to have if one goes to work for the UN, right? So there are many different jobs at the United Nations. When you think about becoming, associated with the United Nations, you probably are thinking of becoming a UN interpreter. But there are many different things that you can do. You could start as low as being an intern and move through the ranks and be a manager of, language aspects or any other aspects. You could also be in a different category that's not professional, and you could eventually land the job as a linguist with the UN. So there are many different things. Now, before anything, we need to talk about professional and higher categories and general services categories, right? So you have the P scale and the G scale, right? So just briefly to give you an idea of what it means to work for the UN. When you come in as an interpreter, you usually come into the system as a professional category uh, officer, usually at the P2 or P3 level. And that scale goes all the way to P5. So you have the P from 1 to 5, and you have the D levels, which are directors, from D1 to D2. And then the rest is just ASG and Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Under Secretary General, and whatnot. So one major misconception is to think that you can only work for the UN as an interpreter and in one of the official languages of the UN. Number one, you can do many other things in the UN and still be in contact with languages like I did. I was the chief interpreter, I was staffing interpreters, I was managing high level aspects of language operations in the UN, and I was not interpreting. I was on occasion interpreting when somebody came from Brazil and they asked me to do it, and so on. So that's one thing you can do. But number two, you can actually work as a linguist, as a freelance interpreter, and service meetings in languages that are not one of the six languages of the UN. I have done many assignments in the UN when Portuguese officials or Brazilian officials came to Geneva, say for the ILO or for WIPO and so on. And on occasion, my colleagues would call me to sit in for somebody just for a short presentation and so on. And you can on occasion be a freelancer for the UN, which again makes you a UN interpreter in your own right. So there are different levels. You could be a staff, but it could also be a freelancer. But I wanted to really quickly go over some of the financial perks of working for the United Nations. Just to, again, if you already felt like working for the UN, I wanted you to feel even more excited about it. The pay is not bad, right? So you have, these are the scale as far as pay. So if you are within the reach of a P4 to P5, which any interpreter can aspire to be, you're looking at, depending on where you are, anywhere from 70 to about 110 US dollars. Now, all that, of course, is tax-free. So you can add, depending on where you are, another 40% on top of that, just from taxes that you're not going to be paid. But the beauty in the United Nations is that this is just half of the equation. You also have what we call the post adjustment, which is a compensation for the purchasing power that you can expect to have in the duty station where you are. So Geneva, for example, where I was, well, going back, New York City, which is the benchmark, is 64 or 67% of that scale, which means that on top of this salary, you're getting, if you work in New York City, 67% more every month as a post adjustment, just to make sure that you can live in New York City. In Geneva, it used to be between 100 to 103%. So you double that salary when you live in Geneva. Of course, Geneva can be very expensive, but if you find, again, a nice place to live and so when you don't have too expensive an operation, you can have a very good life. Now, the perks are also incredible. So, on top of your salary, you're going to have, if you're moving to a different location, you're going to have all your moving expenses paid. You get what they call an assignment grant, which is equivalent to maybe 1.5 months' salary just to get you settled. You have the rental subsidy, meaning the organization is going to pay the difference you can expect to pay for a house that you want to live in and what the market and any surplus in the market, any premium that the market is charging, the organization is going to pay for 6 years 80%, 70%, 60% of those expenses. If you have kids, you can send your kids to the best schools in the world. I did. My daughter went to the Polymotor School for fashion in Italy. She went to Nottingham Trent for her BA. My son went to an incredible hotel school in Lausanne and so on. And the organization is going to pay 75% of all those expenses plus the housing fees. And you got to be careful there because you still have to pay 25%, and 25% of a lot is still a lot. But you have a lot of perks, guys. And on top of that, you have 30 business days of leave, which means 6 weeks of paid holidays. Plus, every 2 years, you have what we call the home leave, which is a mandatory vacation that you need to take in your country of origin to make sure that you keep your ties with your country. And those are paid as well. So you get the full fair economy ticket for you and all your family to go where you need to go. And you can buy the ticket on miles if you want. So people who live in Australia, and when they were working for Geneva, every 2 years, they had money enough to buy a new car if they wanted. So again, I'm being very, very provincial here, perhaps, and so on, but just to again show you that the UN is indeed a prime job. It's an interesting occupation. It's where the action happens. It is a great feeling to be, among the movers and shakers and so on. And there's a lot of perks and benefits that go with it. So get excited, guys, because there are great opportunities for you there. Now, if you are a linguist, now going specifically to the job search in the UN, right? And again, guys, I'll have to be superficial in what I cover here because I only have 30 minutes if I understand it correctly. Now, if you are a linguist and you want to become a staff interpreter, if you do have one of the languages that are official languages of the UN, then you must qualify by taking what they call the competitive examinations for language professionals. These are, again, I'm going to share those links with you, but these are examinations where you're tested as a translator, as an editor, as an interpreter, and those are offered according to the needs of the departments on more or less of a regular basis. So you need to be on the lookout for those things. They advertised this on social media just yesterday. I saw a call out for translators of German. And then you show up and you get tested. These are rigorous exams where you have to really perform as an interpreter. And if you do succeed, you're put on a roster of eligible candidates who might be considered for freelance assignments, but more so for vacancies that are open in Geneva or New York or Vienna or elsewhere. So it's a good thing if you have one of the official languages of the United Nations. I'm going to share the links with you later so you can go there. So that's for you as a linguist. But as I said, if your language is Ukrainian, you still can qualify, you still can be called to do freelance work for the United Nations, depending again on where you are and if the opportunities are right. Now, you're excited about the job, you like the perks, you want to maybe move in as a linguist or otherwise. Whatever the case, the place to go if you want to find opportunities with the UN, the first thing you need to do is to go to the careers portal of the UN, careers.un.org, and create your profile. So I'm going to log in with my own credentials here. And it's a huge portal, guys. So you come in here and you have all sorts of explanations on how to become a candidate, how to exceed the expectations of the people who are going to later interview you and so on. So your first job, if you're serious about the UN, is to come here and complete your profile. Spend a couple of days here completing your profile and making it the best profile you can, the most complete profile you can, right? So, and then you're going to have notifications. You're going to have a lot of information about your applications and so on. They do a very good job of keeping you posted. Oops, sorry, guys. Now, this is all good, but you still have to find a job, right? And you can do so here. So you can do a job search here. You can do here. You can come here and say interpreter. And let's see if that brings up any results. and then you can apply. Let's see what that does. Okay, yeah, there's one or two or three. Well, there's a lot. And you could, in principle, apply, but it's a drag having to come here, I'm sure you will agree, on a daily basis to see if there's an opportunity for you, right? So every day you have to come here and check and see and look out. There's an easier way to do it though. And what I do and what I suggest you do is you go to a website called unjoblist.org. Not sure if you're familiar with this, but this is where they consolidate every opportunity in the UN system for linguists and not linguists, right? So you come here and on the homepage, you see what are the vacancies that have no external views, meaning that they're not in high demand. So your chances are high. Those that are closing soon, the new job listings, and so on. And you can do a lot of searches here. You can search by duty station, you can search by type of job, by category, by level, and so on and so forth. But again, you don't want to have to come here every day and search manually. So what you can do, which is what I did and how I landed the job with the UN, is you come here and you do a search. So let's say you want to be an interpreter, and you do interpreter. Now you see that Vienna, Geneva, and Vienna, again, they're looking for interpreters. So there's an opportunity for Russian interpreters, guys, in Vienna. So if your language is Russian and you have passed the the competitive exams, you can apply here and you can qualify, right? Now, one thing you can do here, and that's the beauty of this system, is okay, once you search for a certain keyword, you can create an email alert. So you click here, and that's going to create, if you enter your email here, an alert that's going to send you an email every time there's a new job with that keyword. So you enter conference, and you enter language services, and you enter interpreter, and you create a few of those email alerts. And on a weekly basis, you're going to get reminders of jobs in the system matching what you want to have. And so this is the one step that I suggest you do if you're serious and you want to really grow with the UN. How long do I have, guys, still?
Sorry?
How
I
long
think
do
we
I still have?
yeah, I think you have about 10 minutes safely.
Okay, very good. So this is how, again, this is how you get sensitized about opportunities. But again, you must always come back here and make sure your profile is good and so on. Something else that the United Nations does is it may include you in a roster of good candidates. For example, I applied to two opportunities in the past before I even came to New York City, where they found that I was a good enough candidate, but I ranked second. Somebody else got the job. Well, what they do is they roster you and they kind of clear you preemptively for additional work and additional opportunities at that level with that particular combination, the keyword combination and so on. So when a new job comes that matches your requirements, before they even advertise it, they go to the rostered candidates and say, hey, you are rostered for this position. Are you interested? And you kind of have a leg up and you jump, you cut the line, if you will, right? It's a good thing to have. So take every application very seriously because you may end up being rostered, which is a good thing. Now, again, we've covered the basics, and you can do a lot more just by coming here and trying these links for yourselves. But one thing I want to dismiss with you, again, is the whole aspect of language, right? And I'm not gonna. Can you still see the big screen, guys?
Yes, you would do.
Okay, I'm going to play this video. I've taken the sound off just to again sensitize you about the importance of understanding the language requirements. This is usually where I spend most of my time when I talk about the UN. Again, many people think that they need to have too many languages, that they need to have Arabic and French and Chinese, which very few people do. And this will help you understand, and I have the link to this little video that I did long ago This will help you understand what the language requirements are. So bear with me for maybe 2 or 3 minutes here as I review this. The UN has 6 official languages, and the requirements for people working in different booths are very specific. Say, if you are an interpreter of Chinese or Arabic, you must have a solid retour into English or French. Because when somebody speaks Arabic on the floor, you rely on somebody in the Arabic booth to render that into English for the benefit of the other interpreters who are going to take relay off of you. Right? That is so for Chinese as well. If somebody speaks Chinese, few people understand the language. So an interpreter in the Chinese booth has to go into into English. That English becomes the base language for everybody else to work from. That's how it usually works. That's why you have 3 interpreters in the Chinese and Arabic booth, because they never stop working. All the other booths in the UN, they are single booths, meaning English booth only speaks English, French booth only speaks French, Spanish only speaks Spanish, and there you go, right? So let me let it run and I can talk as I go. The thing is, if you are a Russian interpreter, all you need to work for the UN in principle is to have a solid understanding of English and of course a active command of Russian, because you need to go into Russian. That's all you're going to do all day. Or if you're Spanish, all you're going to do is speak Spanish and you need to understand the English. It helps if you understand Spanish, but it's not a must, right? And the same goes for uh, Chinese and Arabic. As long as you have a good understanding of English, you're good to go. Now, the English and French booths is where it gets complicated, because let me advance this a little further. Because in the English booth and in the French booth, you need more passive languages. So you need to have your A and B and C languages very well defined. And for you to qualify for work in the English booth, you need to have at least French and either Spanish or Russian as a passive language. So let's say your English is native English, your language is native English, and you want to work in the English booth in the UN. To do so, you need to prove that you can understand French and that you have very good, solid command of Russian as a passive language. Your colleagues sitting in the booth with you would need to have the same thing, but with Spanish, meaning that the English booth has to be self sufficient whenever anybody speaks French, Spanish, or Russian on the floor. And the French booth needs to be self sufficient when anybody speaks Russian, English, or Spanish on the floor. Because it's hard to find someone with all those languages, what we do is we pair people up in such a way where if this is the English booth, one colleague has French plus passive, has passive French and passive Russian, and the other colleague has passive French and passive Spanish. This way, I can be guaranteed that at any point in time, that booth is covered for French, Spanish, and Russian. No matter what gets spoken on the floor, I am available in the English booth. Somebody is available in the English booth to go into English. And that's also why you will see the interpreters taking turns every 30 minutes on the clock. It's top of the hour and bottom of the hour. If the meeting starts at 10:20, the first interpreter is only going to work 10 minutes. When the clock hits 10:30, everybody switches, because the team articulation has to be kept exactly as it is, so that if this guy goes wash his hands when it's his passive shift, somebody else in the adjacent booth will cover for Spanish, because that person is at a loss if somebody speaks Spanish. So all that to tell you, and again, I want to leave some time for questions, but all that to tell you that depending on your language, if you aspire to be in the English or French booth, the requirements are a lot stringent for you, a lot more stringent for you. But if you aspire to be on any other booth, all you need is a good, solid command of your mother tongue, Russian or Spanish or whatever the case might be, and a solid understanding of English. So it is a fallacy and it is a misconception to think that in order to qualify for work in the UN, you need to master all the languages out there. So I'm going to stop here. I appreciate that I had very little time to go over this with you guys. So I want to leave some time for questions. If anything, I just wanted to keep you excited about opportunities in the UN, show you a little bit of the ropes where you go to get sensitized about the opportunities and what to do. There's another aspect to securing a job with the UN, which is how you handle your applications. But this is again a 3-hour seminar that I usually conduct when I did when I was doing coaching for interpreters, where you start to look at your application as a piece of writing, first off, in a very strategic combination of how you present yourself and how you engage and enlist the help of your references and so on, and how you play some of these cards to your advantage. The higher you go, the more important your references become, and the more important it is for you to play the diplomatic game to a certain level as well. You need support for anything P5 and D1. These are geopolitically strategic positions where, again, the system is all clear, it is all impartial, and so on. But different people will apply. And depending on how many Americans you have in the organization, how many French people you have in the organization, what are the underrepresented countries, and so on, you may or may not have an advantage, and you need to play those cards correctly. So that's what I had for you this morning or this afternoon. In your case, I'm going to stop here. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, Ewandro, thanks a lot for your presentation. We already have the first question. I'm running with the mic.
Dear Ewandro, thank you very much for your extremely informative presentation, and I have two interlinked questions. Let's start from the first one. Maybe I have missed this. Shall I first pass an exam to qualify as an interpreter, UN interpreter, and only then I have to start searching for the vacant positions, or vice versa? And the second question right away, if I fail, if I do not pass the exam, do I have another attempt, or I will be banned forever?
Yes, these are very good questions. Yes, if you want to be a staff interpreter in one of the official languages, the competitive examination is a must. You must pass that exam. But if you fail, you can try again later. They will actually tell you more or less where you came short of their expectations and kind of work with you for next time. So they don't want to blacklist you. They understand that interpreting is something you grow into, and they will work with you. Now, that does not preclude you from applying for managerial positions. For example, anything up to, say, no, the position of a chief interpreter with one of the specialized agencies, for example, you can apply and you're going to be judged just on the merits of your CV, your references, and so on. For some positions, like, for example, if you want to be the chief interpreter at P5 level in Vienna, I applied, for example, for that position, and I couldn't go through because they expect the chief interpreter to have one of the languages because that person is expected to also interpret. So because Portuguese is not a language that I can be tested on, I couldn't go through. But at the D1 level, so if you want to be the chief interpreter of the United Nations headquarters, right, the main body, you don't need to pass the exam because you're not supposed to interpret necessarily. That's more of a managerial position, a D1, a director. And again, it's a higher position where you don't have to apply as a linguist. But I hope to have answered your question, yes.
More questions? Okay, I'm going to take my co-moderator status and ask myself a question. The thing is that I have a personal story to tell. I wanted to apply to become a freelance interpreter, and actually I was disqualified on the requirements for the A language, which is supposed to be my mother tongue. So I applied as a person who has Russian as her A language and respectively English as B and French as C. What I was told is that as I was born in Ukraine and I probably got my education, my university education in Ukrainian, this means that probably Russian is not my mother tongue. So even the fact that I'm from a Russian-speaking family and I went to a Russian-speaking school, that apparently didn't count. So could you actually comment on the rules of how you actually, how they qualify the languages as being A, B, or C?
That strikes me as a bit unusual. Again, it depends on who the proctors are. It depends on who is on the board the day you test, right? Again, the way we look at mother tongues, again, there are two basic defining criteria to tell anybody what their language, native language is. Either your language of, the one you're born into, like in my case, Portuguese. I was born in Brazil. I was raised in Brazil. I went to school in Brazil. That's all my education up until university level, BA level, has been in Portuguese. But you could also have Portuguese, Brazilian upbringing or a Ukrainian upbringing, and you might have had all your schooling in a different language. So take my kids, for example, they are Brazilians like I am, but at age 10 or 12, they immigrated to the United States, and all their schooling after that has been in English. Even in Brazil, their schooling wasn't an international school. So they can prove that they went to university in English, that they went through middle school in English. So these are, it's the main language of schooling and the language you're born into, right? Now, where do you come from is a complicated question these days, right? Because you can be born in Ukraine and then you spend more time in Lebanon than you did in Ukraine. And that's going to affect how your languages sound. Again, I can't judge how native your Russian sounds. Maybe there was something in how they heard you that kind of reinforced the notion that
Sorry,
perhaps
Ewandro. The
your
thing is that I
Ukrainian.
was disqualified still in the application process. They never had the chance to hear me. I wasn't even
Oh, I
accepted to
see.
attend the
I see.
exam.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, these are corner cases where you could have appealed. Did you appeal?
Actually, I didn't. I probably should have.
Yeah, you should have appealed because again, these are very again it's a thin line. You see, so you wouldn't be doing anything wrong to ask them to please tell you exactly where they're coming from to tell you whether you have or don't have Russian as a mother tongue. So you can challenge them, and you should. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else has any more questions? Yes, sure.
Hi, Ewandro.
Hi.
Hola.
Hola.
I don't have a question. I thank you for your presentation, but I'm not yet in condition I'm not thinking about that, but still I would like to thank you and to let you know that as soon as I learned that you're going to be a speaker at UTIC, I got fascinated with your career path and the story of your life, and listened to one of the episodes of En Pantuflas podcast. And I was delighted to translate it into Ukrainian and give access to all the UTIC camp community to listen to it and to appreciate your story. So I wrote to you about that on your Facebook page. If you would like, you can check it out. Thank you.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Así que hablas español entonces también, ¿verdad?
Sí. Fue
Ah, qué
una
bien, qué bien.
buenísima práctica de español argentino, el
Qué bien.
acento brasileño que tú tienes.
Claro, claro. Well, thank you very much. This is very exciting to hear. Thank you first off for listening to the episode. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, so I would
And thank you for
like it to be a
interpreting.
welcome gift.
Wonderful. Very, very well received. Now, one thing, guys, again, careers are never linear, right? And again, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans, right? I never dreamed that I would someday be the chief interpreter in the UN because everybody told me it was impossible. Although I had a dream of working for the UN, it was a wild dream. So I'm a Brazilian. I had never lived in Europe. I didn't speak French at the time when I joined the organization, when French is a huge language for an organization in Geneva. And but there's something about life that actually helps you get the things that you feel really strongly about. So deep in my heart, I really wanted this to happen. And I did everything I could to prepare myself. So, and again, as they say, luck is when opportunity meets with preparation. I was prepared when the opportunity presented itself and I seized it. And I'm here to tell you that no matter how distant it might seem to you at this point, if you really believe in your heart that you have what it takes or that you can attain what it takes to get there, no dream should be too big. And I'm here to give you the courage and the incentive to dream big because, again, I'm living proof that you can get to places where you didn't believe and everybody else didn't believe was possible at first. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. And if I can be of assistance with anything, oh, I still need to share those links with you guys, right? How can I do that?
Do you want to share the screen?
I could perhaps share in the chat in Zoom. Does that work?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, if you put it on Zoom, then the organizers will get it
Okay, so let me do that.
and they will spread the word.
So let me quickly copy this and I go over to Zoom. And so it's going in the chat on Zoom, okay? Oh, the chat is disabled, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, the chat is disabled. Okay, then
Yeah,
I
I'll
guess
send
you
it
could,
to
yeah, you could
Alona.
send that link to Alona, for example, and she will surely pass
Okay.
it all around.
I will do that. Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions, guys?
Yeah, I think we have a question. I'm running with the mic.
All right. So I would like to thank you for your presentation. I'm too young, obviously, to apply for the job in the UN yet, but I saw behind you the poster with Kudo, and I have recently started my experience with this platform. And if I might, I would just like to ask you about this platform because it's not clear enough for me. How should I start? I mean, should I bring clients to this platform, or is there any possibility that I would be, offered some job? How does it work? Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a good question. Thank you very much. Kudo is a cloud-based platform, an RSI platform, like you have a few more out there. The difference is that Kudo is the most interpreter-centric of all platforms because I'm one of the co-founders and I'm an interpreter, so I make sure everything we do makes sense to the interpreters first. So we support our interpreters and we want them to succeed. Now, Kudo is the opportunity for you to service meetings anywhere in the world from your home office or from a hub, right? In the beginning, it was kind of a far-fetched concept. Everybody saw this as something to be considered in the future, maybe, but not now. And then the pandemic came, and it was a lifeline to all of us, to all the interpreters out there. So it was good that we had this ready when the problem hit. So you can, as an interpreter of any language, apply to what we call Kudo certification, right? So again, I can share the link with you here, but I don't know how to do it. Or you can just reach out to me just by email if you want. It's Ewandro, my name, at kudoway.com. And we will provide all the information for you. But basically, you take an online tutorial that tells you exactly how to behave on Kudo, what you need to jump on a Kudo call, and with that, you're Kudo certified. Basically, we invite you also for a 1 hour long webinar, and you're up and running, right? And you can also explore the website for more information, kudoway.com. If you go under resources, I actually have it here, but sharing is complicated. You will find a page just for the interpreters. Now, as you move forward, what Kudo does is clients out there might decide to meet on Kudo and they need interpreters who know how to use the platform. They're going to reach out to you. They're going to negotiate with you. They're going to pay you directly. 85% of our clients have their own interpreters, but they need to be trained in the use of the platform, and we provide that training free of charge. We have a new development now, which is Kudo Marketplace. Kudo Marketplace is the marketplace where a subset of those interpreters is vetted as Kudo Pro interpreters. There's an application link where you can become a Kudo Pro. So if you have more experience and if you've been working with remote for a while and so on, and if you have the right gear, you can apply and you can become a pro in Kudo. Kudo Pro are the first one to be considered for assignments, and they are invited to be on Kudo Marketplace. Now, Kudo Marketplace is an open forum, an open, a destination on the web where you come in as an interpreter and you clear your availability. You say, you look at a calendar and you say, I'm free here and I'm free here and I'm free here. These are my language combinations. These are the subject matters that I am prepared to handle. And you just make yourself available. Clients who are on Kudo and who need interpreters right away or tomorrow, they will come, they will click a button that says, get me the interpreters. And you're going to get a notification saying, hey, there's an offer for you. Are you available? This is how much we pay. And we would be happy to offer you. And you, with a click of a button, can accept or decline or wait for the next opportunity. So it has been groundbreaking. It has been a game changer because interpreters are finding work and without having to hop on a plane and travel and so on. And that's very enabling for somebody in Brazil or in Ukraine for that matter. So do reach out to me, all of you. It's my first name at kudoway.com. I'll be happy to provide more information and put you in contact with other colleagues on my team that can provide that information.
Yeah, as we started talking about Kudo, there is actually a comment from a colleague here. And
Hi, it's a comment and a question. My name is Alex, and I am a simultaneous interpreter and conference interpreter for some 15 years now. And I've tried Kudo together with a translation company and their engineers. We had a thorough session through like an hour of testing everything. And I have a comment, and I wanted to tell the guys on the other side to please pass it over to the developers, because I've been interested in remote platforms before the pandemic started because I really liked it, but I scared a lot of people away talking about, well, maybe someday we're going to need remote interpreting, and so see what happened. So I'm not saying I have a crystal ball. I'm saying having tested a lot of the applications for remote interpreting, why do I think, why not only me, why Zoom actually dominates for now? Because they have invested in their proprietary software. They don't use browsers. You can use browser, but that's a shaky ground. The most of the core functionality is in their program, is in the API, is in the... So Kudo, to me, who worked with all kinds of equipment and the software, and I'm a developer somewhat myself from learning, but still, what I saw in Kudo, it's a great idea of an interface, but all of that should be done not in a browser, for the interpreter, I mean. It would be a great idea to invest. I understand that it can be a hefty investment, but develop a core proprietary program without browsers, because browsers they used to be reliable before the add-ons, revolutionized everything. You can slap anything onto your browser and it's not reliable anymore. One or two add-ons on a pretty stable Mozilla can do all kinds of havoc to you. So Kudo is a great thing, and I liked all these little details and tweaks and knobs you can tweak, but more marking, more visual orientation for the interpreter, because I was blind for some 15 minutes. I didn't know which job each fader did. And secondly, my browser started misbehaving immediately. And I tried another browser and another browser, and this is where I think the bottleneck is. It has to be a proper, solid program, a proprietary program. Thank you, and it was a great thing. With my colleague, we translated your podcast, and it was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the comments. Let me react to the two things you said. First off, why is Zoom getting more traction? The answer is very simple, because it's free. It's almost free. It's $14 a month, depending on where you are. And if you look at the language aspect in Zoom, and they are the first ones to admit it, it's an afterthought, right? It's something that they came up with to allow you to do something if it's, just two languages or in one direction mainly and so on. You can't do relay. You can't listen to your colleague. You can't. It's not a professional solution for multilingual meetings. Kudo is, and of course the price is different because of that. Now on the whether we should have a client on the computer and so on and so forth, that's a double-edged sword. In the beginning, the decision to go browser-based was deliberate because asking anybody to download anything on their computers these days of cyber attacks and so on was a deterrent for many of the organizations that to whom we were selling this. So, and Zoom had its own shares of problems as well in terms of security and so on. And by the way, we are great admirers of Zoom. Don't get me wrong. We have full respect for what they do, and I think they're pushing the envelope big time for including on language on anything else that we're doing. And now the good news is that we now have reached a point of maturity where we are developing the client API, or the downloadable application that you mentioned for the interpreters. Interpreters are even going to have an iPad solution that's really portable, they can take with them and so on. For the time being, we're still reliant on the browsers, and we ask the interpreters again. The reason why you had some of the issues that you had again might be localized in your machines and so on, but there's a lot of troubleshooting tips and hints that we can give you in the trainings that we conduct on our end that would have minimized those. So, but I agree with you. Having it be a client would be a lot more stable, but it's not something we're still ready to impose on the clients. But on the interpreters, yes, we're already working on that. It's just not high enough in the level of priorities because we have so much requests from clients, for the voting system that we have created. Again, you can meet, you have, organizations, parliamentary organizations and so on, meeting on Kudu and doing serious voting on Kudu, which again is not something you can do on any other platform. So again, it's a juggling act where you have to prioritize what's important for clients and what's important for interpreters. We see interpreters as huge clients, and I'm pushing the envelope on that as well. So you may expect to see that in a couple of months, maybe a few more months in the future. But the point is taken. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ewandro, for this great time you spent with us. We almost didn't feel the distance that separates us, and that's a lot to say in these days. We still hope that you'll be able to visit us sometime in this great location in the woods, deep in the heart of Ukraine. And for now, thanks again, and we're concluding our interpreting track.
Thank you. Thank you guys very much. And again, I really wanted to be there in person. Thank you. I really wanted to be there in person, but it was not possible because the flight connections were impossible. So next time for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.